So hi, everyone. Welcome. This is the CHPPD's Guide to Navigating the Annual Meeting. We have here today Brian Buckley, who is the immediate past chair of the CHPPD section, so we're very lucky to have him. I am Deja Knight. I'm the student liaison for the 2020-2021. I said that very long, but year. Forgive me. So we'll get started with Brian. I would love for you to introduce yourself, and then Brian have a couple of slides, and I'll ask kind of questions if they arise in the chat, and at the end I'll ask kind of follow-up questions. So I'll give it to you, Brian.
Hey, thank you, Deja, and welcome for all those that are on the call here today and all those that are listening to this. So a little background about who I am. Deja gave me somewhat of a background, but just giving you on who I am to some degree. I like to think of myself in three buckets: a researcher, educator, and a public health practitioner. As a researcher, I work on translational health service research and really at that intersection of improving the diagnostic process, but also the intersection of community partnerships and patient safety and quality. As an educator, I'm an assistant professor in medicine at Georgetown, so I teach a lot of performance improvement, leadership, strategy, change management, methodologies. And then last but not least, my public health practitioner role, which Deja mentioned. I'm the immediate past chair of the community health planning and policy development section of APHA. And have a couple of other titles. I do a lot of things around the DRPH Coalition, so anyone that's interested in the DRPH, I got you. And I sit on a couple of advisory boards for schools of public health, and recently just on the board of the American Heart Association for Greater DC. So a lot of things. This is going to be my, let's see, as I count, this is going to be like my 8th or 9th annual meeting. And so as I was putting together some of these slides, I was thinking to myself, man, what would I have wanted to know if I was going to the annual meeting? And I think even more now than ever, as we have gone to this hybrid meeting model, I'm going to modulate between both how to do many of these things, both in person, but also as you also are attending this virtually, because we know not everyone has the opportunity to come in person, whether it be health, whether it be job, finances. I want to make sure I'm also addressing you. And there's a lot of new things around how to network, how to navigate the virtual environment to really get the full value of the annual meeting. So hopefully without further ado, let's kind of get to it. So I thought about some high level things. Know that this is not an exhaustive list. And for the folks that are here with us, please put your questions in the chat. I know Deja will be collecting some of those. But as I go through any of these points, feel free to ask further or follow-up questions. You know, this is very much kind of a hodgepodge, very casual conversation. But hopefully you want to tackle networking, how we think about networking, pictures, selfies, follow-ups, branding, tribe, which I'll talk more about, dress codes, because people are like, what do I dress like for annual meeting? Social media, is there something I'm supposed to do? And just how do I schedule everything? So let's start off with the first one, networking. And I'm really a big fan of this idea of social capital. Your network is your net worth, by Porter Gale. And often, sometimes I know this is like what people would say the annual meeting, this is like really the main meat of the annual meeting, where you get a lot of that benefits of being able to network and find new people, find connections, find all this. For my extroverts, you're like, oh man, this is great. I got this. I'm good. For the introverts, like you might be like, this is very overwhelming, because especially when you go to the annual meeting for the first time. And for the folks, I'm gonna shift to the in-person, then I'll get to the virtual. For the people in person, it can be very overwhelming. And already the APHA annual meeting for this year is around, I believe they have a little over 7,000 people that are going to be there. On average, before the pandemic, when we had an APHA annual meeting, it was roughly on the, it's probably closer to the 12 to 13,000. And so that's a lot of people. APHA has one of the largest annual meetings of any other organization. And in many ways, it's like a family reunion. You're like, you know, it's like going to the barbecue, like, oh man, I haven't seen you for a year. And you start building those bonds. And so networking can be very, very scary, but hopefully I'll give you a couple of pointers on just how to network. One of the things that I'm going to touch on is find your tribe. So one of the cool things about being part of our section is APHA 1 is super large, over 30,000 members. Sections and CHPPD, we're here to make this a little bit more manageable, really creating a sense of family support network. So you don't have to feel like you have to be everywhere. You can be with your tribe, CHPPD, or any other section that you're part of, or any caucus that you're part of. Those are the ways on how you navigate, finding out who are the energizers, who are the people that are going to be at the annual meeting in person, looking to go to the booth. But all these things are the aspects of networking. You're going to meet a ton of different people. If you're a student, make sure to get really involved with the student assembly, which is they have their own, and I'll talk more about the scheduling aspect. They have their own ways of trying to find ways to get connected with different people. But also you're going to meet a lot of random people. You're going to see people that you've read about that are just going to be walking down the hallways. And so make sure to, one, always be ready to have your elevator pitch. And I think I've talked about this before in some other past things. Have your elevator pitch. Think about who you are. Like, what's like your quick, hey, you know, my name is Brian Buckley. I live in Maryland. Let's say I'm a student. I'm a student at, you know, Michigan State University, and I'm really interested in X, Y, and Z. Just having your own, like, your story of self. Who are you and what problem are you trying to solve in the world? People always love to hear. And there are so many people that are interested in coaching, networking with students, especially if you're a student. I'm talking about students in my early career professionals. For my folks that are more seasoned, might be your first, but you know, you're more seasoned, people are always looking for collaborators. And so always find that energizing person in the group that I call it the network broker right here. They're the ones that are linked to everybody. And I know some people have utilized me. Just know I'm gonna be real busy this annual meeting, but normal, you will find a lot of our CHPPD leaderships that know a lot of different people. So even just knowing our leadership and knowing the ones that are gonna be there, make sure you find them because they've been to the annual meeting most likely before and they know who to connect with. And I know in the past, I myself have when I've heard people's stories, people looking for jobs, people looking for internships, social capital, and whether it's intellectual capital, financial capital as they have this idea, or even political capital if they're trying to get somewhere, I've been making sure to like link people up. And so I would like to think of myself as one of those brokers, but find those brokers. And if there are questions, yeah.
I was going to say one of the brokers can also be your schools. So finding your school booths, finding your school meetings, socials, or schools that you would like to attend. So my own personal success story is that I really wanted to go to graduate school and get my MPH. And so at one of the past APHA meetings, I went to those schools and I said, hey, I want to get into this school. Do you have anybody here I can talk to? And one of the leaders of the programs at Yale was there. And he was running this diversity program and just an amazing person to know, Trace Kershaw at Yale. And he told the lady to give me his phone number and he said, text me. And I texted him and he said, come to this area right now for this social. And I did that. And then I was accepted into Yale later. That can be your success story for whatever program, school, or job you want. So your schools or a school you want to attend can be your broker.
Thank you for that. And I would actually say my Deja's story is very similar to mine. I did my doctorate at Harvard, and it was actually one of my CHPPD, I guess, mentors or kind of tribe that I've been going with. I was really intimidated to like go to the Harvard booth, and she literally took my hand and walked me to the Harvard booth and was like, hey, at the time it was Vincent James that was there. And she looked at him and said, this guy's gonna go to your school in the future, talk to him. And yeah, I have my doctorate from Harvard. So, you know, these networks can be very powerful. For my folks that are virtual, it's a little bit differently. It works a little bit differently since you won't have that in person, but do not fret, you can connect. There is a list, and we'll go over the scheduling app of how to find people. So this is where you start to be strategic about who are the people that are going to the annual meeting, who are the people you want to meet as you're thinking about the different speakers that are speaking, and we'll talk more about scheduling and finding the things that you like, finding out their contact information. There's a way to actually chat with people within the app, the annual meeting app, and connect. I've already gotten 2 people already that have already gone ahead, above and beyond, and found me on the platform and actually have already reached out to me via email and said, hey, I'm not going to be at the annual meeting, but I'll be there virtually. I know you'll probably be busy during the annual meeting, but I would love to talk to you about your presentation. I'm going to be presenting about non-traditional public health careers. I want to talk to you. Do you have time after the annual meeting? That is a really good way to network. And I was like, thank you. You acknowledge that I'm going to be busy during the annual meeting, and half of us are really rarely ever looking at our email. Can we find some time after the annual meeting? And so those are ways to like think about that 2 to 3 sentences that you want to send somebody, and be purposeful about who you want to send it to and what you're trying to get from them. And try not to try to schedule things during the annual meeting, because that's always very hard for people, but always think about either pre-annual meeting stuff or after the annual meeting of things you can do. So if there are any questions that start coming from there, start kind of putting them in the chat, or sending them to Deja, and we can follow up when we get to kind of the open discussion part. The next part is scheduling. And so I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen real quick, and I'm going to actually go to the scheduling app itself, just so we can walk through this to some degree. Hopefully everyone can see my screen here. I think Deja can give you the thumbs up. Okay, cool. So if you are registered for the annual meeting, this is the screen you're going to do. You're going to log in, find the email that you got your original confirmation. There's an ID, which is your conference ID. You're going to use that and the email you registered with to log in. From there, there is actually an app. So if you're really wanting to do this all via app, you can also do that. Here's the QR code, whether you're on Apple or Android. But there's so much within this platform that you can kind of do. And really, that's the one thing I'm going to stress. Schedule. Like right now, the annual meeting starts pretty much this week. Start scheduling everything, because just take 30 minutes and schedule, because it'll make your life so much easier before all the chaos starts. As you go in this network, you look for amounts. You can do it in Mountain Time or your own time. Note that everything in the annual meeting, usually as we're talking about, is in Mountain Time, because they're in Denver, Colorado. And also, if you're going to be there virtually, if you're going to be there in person, make sure you have it on Mountain Time, so you kind of have the conversion. But if you're going to be there virtually, wherever you are, do it within your time zone, just so you know when things actually start. So keep that in mind, because last year, I knew a lot of people got really confused with the time zones. So I'm going to keep it in Mountain Time just because it's easier, because I'll be going in person. You can search for anything, keywords, as you're thinking about this. If you're interested in nutrition, you can type in nutrition. If you're interested in climate change, you can type in anything. You'll find people, sessions. You can filter it by day, time, all these other type of sessions, things that are going to be in person, virtual, so forth. So there's a lot of, if you need CEs, all of them have CEs, but just know that this is a place that you can search pretty much for anything. Then you have the Public Health Expo. There's a virtual, you have my schedule. So you have your schedule. I'm gonna go with this one first, which is essentially your order of operations. You can always look back to this and say, okay, what am I supposed to be doing? So this is my schedule. So you're kind of seeing a preview of what I have to do. Keep in mind, one of the things going into this, schedule all the things you're interested in. And I say this for 2 reasons. One, there's the things you're going to go to in person or you're going to be watching live. But then there's things you might want to remember that you may not want. The benefit of this hybrid is all things are going to be recorded. The majority of things are going to be recorded. If you want to go back and it's like another session you want to look at later down the road, this is a way for you to go back. If I remember correctly, the recordings will be available for, I think, 3 to 6 months after the annual meeting. Don't quote me on that, but it's a pretty significant time. And within this schedule, you can download this as a PDF, which I actually did right here, which actually shows it in a PDF format. And you can also download this as an ISC file. And the benefit of this ISC file is once you download it, if you have Outlook or Google, you can download it and it will add all the events to your personal calendar if you use a calendar at home. Likewise, if you have the app, it also can show you from a calendar mode as well, if you don't want it to cross mingle. You can browse by the day. And you can, for the folks, you can do in-person, virtual, the things that are recorded, things that will be on demand. As I said, the annual meeting essentially starts tomorrow when it comes to all activities and events. This is just kind of the preamble. You can do it by program. And the good thing about program, this is where it gets back into your tribe. for folks that are part of our section, that you can find the community health planning section, and everything that's related to our section. The majority of things are on here. There's a couple of section specific things I'm going to highlight that you should go to that aren't necessarily in here, but you should have been getting emails from Ebony, our chair, our amazing chair, that have been talking about some of our key flagship events that we do have. And you also have curated sessions. And so just keep in mind that this is like, you have to kind of play around. There's film festivals, there's theme related sessions, there's poster sessions. If you're presenting, you can find your poster. And there is this wonderful new thing called networking and engaging. And so there's different ways that they're going to be throughout. They're going to be doing virtual and in-person social gatherings to some degree. So for some, there's going to be coffee chats that folks will have. So for anyone that's thinking about it, this is like, you can read more about it, but this is just a whole entire engagement. And this goes back to my whole thing about networking. And this is where I told you you can find the attendee list. So you can search for anybody that's going to be coming to annual meeting. And it goes by last name. So you can find anyone, and likewise, you can go through the search function and pick someone. So for, let's say we have, and you can see if they're presenting or not. And let's say you want to contact them, you can just press contact and you can type your email to them. And once you send it, it will go straight to their email that they're registered for. And you can talk about if you want to correspond via email, Zoom, by phone. So this is a great way as I talk about that whole networking. So spend some time in this platform to just explore, because there's a lot of things in here. And once you get this, this will set you up pretty well for the annual meeting. Deja, anything to add on the scheduling thing before I move on?
We have a question.
Go for it.
So Cheyenne or Shanayan, please correct me. I think I'm butchering your name, I'm sorry. But they said, hi, I'm attending in person and worked on my schedule. There are several concurrent sessions I'm interested in attending. How soon will the recordings be available to watch?
Great question. So that is the game of the annual meeting, and that never ends. There's like, you'll see people out here like running down the hallways, like trying to go from one session to others. I think the beauty of this annual meeting and last year is the fact that they're doing these things on demand. Back in the day, they used to record some of the things, but you had to pay an extra amount to like find those things on demand. Now they're just incorporating as part of the price, which is a benefit for these past 2 annual meetings. And so when you're running around, find out the session you really want to go to, and also look at location and how far it takes to get, because the annual meeting, it covers a massive amount. And I've been to the Denver conference, it's massive. So it's like, if you see that your other session is on the other side, just know you're not going to get there. So find out the ones that you really want to go to and see if they're clustered together. It's not unusual for people to kind of hop around. If they're like, oh, this is not really that good, let me go to the other one. When it comes to the recordings, I believe they will be available usually they're available within 24 hours of the session happening. Some of them will be live, so they'll be live recorded, so you can like watch. And I'm sure some people are going to be listening to a recording of something live while they're in person at another event. So you're going to see some of those happening, but they should be available, at least if it goes by how it did last year, within 24 hours. If it's live recorded, if it's on demand, it will be available within the next day. So hopefully that answers your question.
I will also prioritize any sections or any talks where you think you might be interested in asking a question. So if you definitely think, oh, I want to meet this person or ask this specific question during a time that they had that talk, or immediately after that session, then I would prioritize that session over another one.
And I probably should add one more thing. So there's 3 different types of versions here. So there is in person, so it is happening in person, so you are in person. There's virtual, so it's live recorded and will be available within like the next day. And then there's on demand, in which it was pre-recorded and sent, and it will be available at a specific time. And afterwards, so you will have instant access in perpetuity until like 3 to 6 months after it's done. So those, the ones that are on demand, those are gonna be like your poster sessions, which for folks that have been doing it, you had to record it ahead of time, and they actually are uploading it in the system, and you'll have the availability to see it after on a specific day and onward. So just kind of keep those three things in mind as
And
you're
they will be
navigating.
live.
Hmm?
Yep.
Yeah,
And
they're pushing them out live, but they're on demand. So like right after they'll be available because they were already pre-recorded.
another question, is it appropriate to leave a session while it is in program or progress to attend a different session, or should you plan to stay for the entire session? I say you can leave.
You can leave. Don't be out here in the front row
No.
and and then leave it. That I think just from a speaker, and I've been a speaker before, it really feels bad when the person like right in front is like, okay, bye. But if you're like in the back or in the middle or be close to an aisle, you can always like jet out real quick. Some sessions you'll see, and because of social distancing, I know in mass, there's gonna be a little bit more distancing. So things might seem a little bit more scarce than they usually are, but do not feel bad. Like just if you know you're gonna leave, try to just go to the back or the middle or to the side so you can kind of walk out gracefully, but just don't be at the very, very front.
Yes, I also find it to be a smoother transition if you're doing it between speakers. So at least if it's an oral presentation, while one person is coming off the stage and the other person is going on, if you leave during that transition, it seems a bit smoother to me.
Yeah, so do not fret. It is not a bad thing.
That's all the questions for now, so we can keep going.
Cool. Let me go back to slides here. And keep in mind, if things can pop up, like we can always go back. So as I mentioned,
interview.
What?
Your improv interview now.
Oh, come on. Let's see. Thank you for. Okay, here we go. I believe this is good. Can you see everything fine?
Presenter view.
Okay. It like stopped giving me access to some things. Oh, I see why. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, I think it's also helpful to know that all of the presenters are also attending APHA. So likely the things that you're thinking of, or like if you're saying, I want to go for this talk in this session and go to another one, they are likely also doing that at other presentations too. So it's helpful for me to always think about the presenters as attendees of APHA as well.
Let me see. Does this look? Is it still in presenter mode?
Perfect.
All right, good. Sorry, for some reason it stopped giving me the same options I did before. All right, so there, as I mentioned, with your tribe, CHPPD is your tribe. We're your family. We're your community. We're an awesome section, and we have section-specific events that are also. Some of them are on, and hopefully I remember this correctly. We have our Day of Action, which has been a historical thing that our section has done over the past couple of years. And is in many ways, we partner as we APHAs in all these different communities. We like to partner with the state affiliate and the community that we're going to be in on addressing and building awareness for some of the issues that they have within their own community. So it's called the Day of Action. And so this year, we have our Day of Action. It's going to be virtual, just because of all, it's just easier to do that virtually. But it'll be Monday, October the 25th, from 4 to 5:30 p.m. Mountain Time. So and this is a free event. So whether you are registered for the annual meeting or not, you can attend this. And Deja, I don't know what just happened. I don't know if you can if you have the link. But as I'm talking, if you can find some of the link for that and put it in the chat. Same with the awards recognition, which I'll talk about shortly. We also have a student and new member meeting that's part of the annual meeting. That will be part on Monday, October 25th from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Mountain Time. And so if you're a student, new member, this is your first time to our section, want to learn more about how we operate, what activities we're doing throughout the year, know who the leadership is, that's your opportunity to be involved with that and just like, hey, who is CHPPD, and just getting a deep dive in ways to get involved. Really good for folks that are just brand new and just want to learn what we're all about, and also want to be part of engaging and being in different, we have several different committees that are awesome. And another great way to build social capital and network is volunteering. Next, we have our awards recognition and social. This is where we acknowledge people within our section. They're just all-stars and they've done amazing things, whether it be student presentations, all of the CHPD posters. We have a master's award, a doctoral award. We acknowledge certain people within our sections that have contributed and volunteered. You're hearing that word volunteer. These are opportunities to get awards, and also people that won our section awards when it comes to our travel scholarships. And so that will be on October 27th. And that's not going to be in, I think, the system. So you're going to have to register for this one separately. And Deja, I know, will find that link and put it in the chat so you can just get it on your calendar now. That'll be October 27th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Awesome night of celebration and just like a good way of meeting new people within our section that you would not have gotten to know otherwise. And that will be virtual. Also, there's a section business meeting, which is Sunday, a week from today on the 27th. Our section business meeting is really like the state of CHPPD. It's a little bit more formal of just like all the things that we have accomplished for the year and all the things, and really an opportunity to get feedback from section members of like what we can be doing differently. Also another opportunity to understand how APHA or CHPPD operates and just talk about some of those accomplishments. And then for the people that, this is also going to be virtual, and for the meet and greet, this is going to be in person at the expo. There will be a booth at the expo in which you can just, I'm not sure if we're still having people at the booth, but there's going to be a lot of material. So just if you want to kind of get to know all the different types of sections, this is an opportunity, meet some other section people or volunteers that are going to be at the booth, just talking about the section and ways to get involved. So many different ways to do all this. Branding. So I want to laugh at this one because I was like going back through my pictures. So for the people that are going to be, this is solely for the people in person. If you've never been to the annual meeting before, you might see these people with like your name tag. You probably got your name tag. You're gonna see this people with all these ribbons. You're gonna be like, what is going on? It's kind of like a thing that APHA does where we have these ribbons, and you'll see some. I remember the first time I was at APHA, one person had it all the way to the ground and had it clipped. And so it's like this weird competition on how many you can get. Just to give you an idea of how this is all set up, you have your section, your sections that you're part of. This should hopefully be correct. So if you're part of our section, you'll see CHPD in your other section. Actually, let me do the most recent one. If you're a student or whatever organization you put down for your registration, that's what it's going to be. Your name is going to be there with all your credentials. This is when I was a student. I have like a whole bunch of other stuff added there, whatever your location is. And this QR code is when you're at the booth, it's an opportunity for people both at the booth and also if you're trying to get CEs for the in-person sessions, it's a way for them to check you in. So you get checked in on whether you were attending that. And then some of the booths as you go to the schools and some of the activities in the expo, they'll have stickers. So I usually get my like Harvard sticker and my Michigan State sticker to represent. And if you're a student, this will be if you're a student member, early career professional, or regular member. And there are all these different ones that you will see that speakers are giving out. Do not be alarmed. And also something new that they're doing for this annual meeting for the in-person, they're going to have different colored lanyards. So the colors are green, yellow, and red. So keep this in mind, this is something new. If you get the red lanyard, you're essentially saying, I want you to stay away, 6 feet away. I'm not really into touching. Like, you stay in your zone, I stay in my zone. So keep that in mind. That's really like signaling to people you're there, but like, I'm not really trying to interact with too many people. I don't want to be in a crowd. Like, don't walk up within my space. Yellow means I'm cautious. You might do a little fist bump, elbow bump. You don't mind people in your space, but you're okay with it, having casual conversation with mask on and so forth. And if it's green, you're saying, hey, I'm open to hugs, you being in my space. If someone's like open, like, hey, can I give you a hug? You're essentially signaling that. So keep that in mind on those colors and be thoughtful about which color you want for the annual meeting as you go through. And this is the first year that they've done it, so I don't know what it's gonna look like, but that's something that we just got the other day. Any questions around that? All right,
I just
cool.
wanted to plug in that I put a file in the chat with all of our activities, highlighting our major activities. For some reason, it's not letting me paste it in the chat. Weird. But it let me insert a file. So there's a file.
Thank you. And you should also see all these things via the emails that have gone out within the past week as well. So also plug into that as well. So just wanted to put that out there with branding. Be thoughtful about what you want. Usually they have a lot of free ones like Generation Public Health, Speak for Health. If you are part of, if you're a student, you won't see one that says student assembly member or early career professional. I have some when I was the section chair or APHA leader. If you're if you're part of your affiliate, which I hope you are, you can get that. And some that have been in the past, CERN policy statements that the governing council will go over. They will have different ones like end police violence when we have that, or epidemiologist count, and so forth. So just kind of putting that plug out, feel free to add them. And if you're a presenter, you'll see some of those. So just don't think it's unusual. Often, and I'm gonna eventually ask Deja for her thoughts right after I talk on this, so I'm putting her on notice here soon. People often ask how to dress for the APHA annual meeting. And honestly, I'm gonna say dress however you feel comfortable with, but I'm gonna give the preface that you are going to be making first impressions, and it depends on your goals and objectives as you go to the annual meeting. If you're going to the annual meeting to network and build your professional network and thinking about connections, internships, that social capital that I've talked about, you really want to put your best foot forward most of the time. And so you might want to dress up a little bit more to making yourself presentable. But it really depends on how comfortable you are. And some people change throughout the day. So it depends on the day. And you see a spectrum here. So the picture here to the left, that's Dr. Georges Benjamin. He's the executive director of APHA. You might just randomly meet him, and we'll talk about pictures later. If you want to take a picture with him, just note that you'll be wearing something. What do you want that image to look like? And in the middle here, you can have, this is my more formal upbeat stuff. I don't wear ties. I don't really like ties, but here you have this one, Zamir Brown, awesome colleague of ours, one of our governing counselors. He loves to get dressed up. This man is like suit tie all day, and every day, because at the time he just graduated, he's trying to network, he's trying to build that professional network. That's what he was trying to do. And that does come off on people as like, yeah, you're putting your best foot forward. So, and I'm more of a sports jacket casual. I think I was wearing jeans at this point. I already got a lot of my networks. People know who I am. So I'm not as concerned always about how I'm dressing. And then in the afternoon, some people change. So I go more casual in the afternoon, especially as I go to some socials where APHA does usually have a shirt for every year, and they will be selling shirts. I think they're like $20. I wear a lot of their shirts. And so science is evidence, not opinion. For science, for action, for health. And I think last year we did a whole joke of how many APHA shirts does Brian have? Because I think I have like 6 or 7. And so I sometimes will wear that, might wear a sports jacket over that and just be kind of like this semi-casual. So just show up however you think is best appropriate, but note, think about it when you're packing and how, where you're going, if you're gonna be at Airbnb, is there iron, is there not an iron? So keep those things in mind. Do you have pants that are, no wrinkle type of pants? So just kind of, those are things that I keep about in my mind. And have a you might want to be versatile. So I have at least one outfit that's professional. If I know I'm gonna, like the day I present on Monday, I probably will be a little bit more professional. But then every other day, if I'm kind of like between virtual and non-virtual, I might be more casual. So just kind of keep that in mind. And for the people that are going to be virtual, you get to wear wherever you want. You're lucky. But keep in mind, as you are on Zoom and you're asking a question live, be aware of whether you're going to turn your camera on, how you're going to look. So Deja, do you want to add anything? Because I can only speak from like the male perspective in this.
I echo everything you said. Just a couple of things for, I guess, feminine presenting women or individuals. If you are going to wear heels, make sure they are very comfortable. You do not want your feet hurting as you're walking up and down, back and forth around the convention center. It is a huge space. You might also walk to get something to eat. You know, I've had folks say, oh my goodness, let's network, let's go walk to get to this market and get something to eat. Like markets as in places that have stalls where they sell different foods, and walk back and things like that. You do not want your feet to be hurting. You always want, if you're gonna have your shoulders showing, I always carry a jacket, a sweater, something I could throw over my shoulders in case, one, I want to meet someone and I want to look a little bit more professional, not as exposed. Two, because these spaces are often very cold. So you can get very cold very easily. I also dress business casual during the meetings. So I knew I would be away from home this week leading up to APHA and fly from here straight to the meeting. So I thought about this as I was packing, and this is why I have great on the fly thoughts right now. I packed a lot of sweater dresses for one. It's gonna be in the 60s, very cold at night kind of thing. I made sure my dresses were long, or I had boots that came with the dresses to kind of cover up more. I also think that dresses are a great way to be a kind of dressier and more professional, but also very comfortable, because I like to be comfortable. If you're going to wear jeans, make sure they're not ripped or have a lot of distressing. You just want to be, you know, make sure they maybe you're more tailored pair, if you will. Make sure they fit well. They're not hanging off your behind, or if they are a little big, you have a belt on. Ladies, you want to make sure that you're not very exposed. So if you're going to wear a V-neck, make sure you don't have like a lot of cleavage. These nitpicky things that you want to just look at it and say, if I was going to a job interview right now, or if I was going to an informal, you know, hiring event or something like that, would I get hired? Would I like the way that I presented myself? There's also lots of pictures taken around APHA. So I just never want to be caught in a picture looking not as presentable, or something that I wouldn't want posted anywhere, because you do sign that kind of waiver that APHA own the rights to all these pictures and they post them anywhere. So I always say things like that. I just dress as if I am going to go talk to someone who's about to hire me, because the person you talk to might be able to hire you, might accept you into a school and things like that. So like Brian said, you always want to put your best foot forward and make sure that you're representing yourself, how something that you would be proud of.
Yeah, and I kid you not, with the APHA will use your pictures. There was one time I like got the APHA newsletter, and it was like an advertisement for APHA, and I'm like looking, I saw my picture, and I was like, when did they take that picture? And I was like looking all serious and everything. Like I usually smile most of the time, and they got the one picture in which I had the most serious look on my face. And so keep that in mind, putting your best foot forward. And also, I think that Deja, she's made me remember, one, check the weather. Is it going to rain? Because it will get kind of cold in the 30s, and know that you, depending on where your Airbnb or hotel is, you may not have the time to go back. No. So just kind of keep that in mind on like how you're transitioning for the day. Mm-hmm. And last, to give you an idea of how much you might walk, and granted, I go to a lot of places, on average, I was doing like 12 to 14,000 steps for APHA each day. So keep that in mind on how much walking you might be doing. So to her point, wear comfortable shoes. I'm wearing Clarks or sneakers or some type of comfy shoe throughout all of these pictures you see, because you do walk a lot. And there's a lot of standing, a lot of walking. So yeah, keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Let's go just a couple more, and then we can kind of open up for any questions. Social media. APHA will be doing a ton of social media, so will our section. And so if you're not already plugged in or following APHA in the annual meeting, please do. Just to add something special for Twitter, APHA has their normal Twitter, which is public health, at public health, but they have a specific one for at APHA annual meeting. So they'll be mainly posting from that one. And so if you want to get tagged or retweeted, they are constantly retweeting. So there are cool pictures, both in person or at home. Last year, it was really funny where people were taking pictures of like what their space looked like. Some were taking pictures with their pets, with the presentations in the back, screenshots. Feel free to do all those things and tag. And please, if you do tag, make sure you also add CHPPD hashtag CHPPD, hashtag public health. APHA is on all these mediums right now, so just kind of keep them in mind as you think about things. Also, as I said, follow CHPPD. We'll be retweeting the folks that add the hashtag CHPPD. It allows our section family, our section tribe, our community to see and feel where people are at. There have been some people that I've been tagged, or I added hashtag CHPPD, and there's some people that found me in person at the annual meeting because they saw that there was all these selfies that was happening, which is actually a point that I'm gonna mention next. So just kind of make sure you follow us. We're on CHPPD, we're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. So if you're not following us already, please do. And if anything changes or anything's happening, follow the stories and reels. We'll be posting quite a lot throughout the APHA annual meeting. So I'm not gonna play this fully, but one of the things I want to just kind of use it as kind of a way of engaging is for the people that are in person, my philosophy, and this is me talking just Brian Brand, is I always say if there wasn't a picture, the meeting did not happen. It didn't exist. And so I've been really big about pictures. We'll see how people, remember when it comes to pictures, remember people's lanyard colors to know what comfortability that they have. But there's also ways to get around that. And luckily, unfortunately, I don't have that, but I call it social distancing selfies. And so going in front of them by 6 feet, angling up, them in the background, awesome angles for a social distance selfie. And make sure that you do have your mask on while you're inside the conference room. Do not take them off, but if you're outside, feel free based off of the person and asking their permission on how comfortable they feel when it comes to selfie and pictures. And take a lot of pictures if you're there in person. It's a great opportunity to remember, because you might meet so many people that you will not be able to keep track of. And I know there was a question that will probably come up. Make sure you have like a journal or you use your phone's notepad to write down the information when you meet people and follow up things you need to do, because it can get really overwhelming and you're gonna forget if you just try to keep everything in your mind. If you happen to be talking to someone really cool, just write down a couple of facts about them that you remember, like, hey, they go to Johns Hopkins, they're interested in food nutrition, climate change, immigrant health. They said that they'd be happy to follow up with me. Make sure to email them after the annual meeting. Like, create a running list for yourself and give yourself some time to breathe after the annual meeting, because it can be very overwhelming. And everyone that is doing it, it's overwhelming for them too. And wait like a week right after the annual meeting to then start reaching out to people, because most of us are trying to like catch up on our email, and you don't want to email them in that busy time because your email will just get lost. And so this is examples of just selfies I've taken over the years at annual meeting, and you do really get to meet a lot of cool people within our section. As I said, you'll never know who you meet. You might meet some classmates, you might meet program directors, you never know. So just kind of keep those things in mind. And with that, I'm gonna kind of take a pause and see, Deja, if there's any questions that I might be missing.
Yeah.
One that just came to my mind, just because I just remembered it now, is when it comes to LinkedIn, make sure your LinkedIn is up to date with all of your stuff. And note, people may not necessarily have their business cards available per se, just because of it's been COVID life. But another way to share your LinkedIn, I just want to, if you opened up your LinkedIn, so this is my LinkedIn, you have it on your phone, and the upper right, you'll see this kind of QR piece here.
Can you stop actually sharing your screen so we can see your video bigger?
Yeah, sorry about that. So, so this is my LinkedIn. When you normally go onto LinkedIn, I know it's kind of hard to see, but just think about when you open on the app. At the upper right, right next to the search, you'll see this kind of QR code type of thing. You can actually put your QR code out there for someone to scan on their end, and if they press that same area, they can scan, or you can scan their profiles on LinkedIn. And that's a great way to just kind of capture a person right there in that moment. And so you have them, and that's another opportunity to send them a message a week after APHA annual meeting, because they're going to be overwhelmed with a lot of messages. You don't want to be the first one and be lost. Way to engage them.
Yeah, you didn't have this on your list, but I knew you'd be the perfect person because you mentioned it before, about someone was telling me, and this is advice for myself, but someone was telling me the importance of not only having a LinkedIn, but also having a Twitter for academia and business purposes. So I was wondering if we could just touch on it really quickly, like the importance of making a Twitter, maybe considering it if you don't have one.
Yeah, if you don't have a Twitter, this is a great opportunity to kind of, APHA's main communication on where they retweet and like stuff is mainly through Twitter. They're not as big on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. So if me personally, this is my own personal way of how I view social media, Twitter is a great way as you're taking selfies of people, put them, tweet out that you just met so-and-so. If you can find them on Twitter, they might actually link with you. That's another opportunity. Twitter is like the everyday throughout the day as you're kind of chronologically going through APHA, great way to kind of engage throughout the day. Or Instagram stories as a way of engaging throughout the day. And in many ways, I kind of hold, when it comes to my Instagram reels, I actually create an APHA 2021 probably folder, which has all of them. So when people see who I met at APHA, there can be connections. When it comes to LinkedIn, I'll wait probably till right at the end of the annual meeting to do kind of like a big LinkedIn kind of post, which actually has maybe like my top 5 pictures that I'm like, oh yeah, this is like what I got from APHA. These are all the amazing people I got to meet, and really kind of like APHA was amazing. You'll actually have APHA most likely like that post if you do it that way versus trying to post every day throughout the annual meeting. Some people have kind of done it where they post day 1. And for all their social medias, they'd be like day 1 of APHA annual meeting, and they'll put all the photos that they have or things that they learned. They're like, oh yeah, this speaker talked about social justice and the fact that we can't be about our degrees, but we need to be about impact. So those quotes, especially if you are in a session, listening to a speaker or listening to them both either live or if you're virtual, a way to tweet out some type of quote that they said, find them on Twitter. Those are great ways to get a whole bunch of likes, get a whole bunch of people and building out your brand as a whole. And if you ever need any help, this is where find people. Deja, I know, is always a resource. And many folks that use, and she'll be there. But if you don't have a Twitter and you're trying to figure out how to navigate that, that's a great way to kind of go about that. But I would say the main one is Twitter, and LinkedIn is where I'm going to be my most biased. Instagram is definitely great if you have pictures and there's a lot of cool pictures you want to show out and it's more focused on pictures. LinkedIn is really more of that professional network. So think about what's the image and message you're trying to signal to other people within the business connections you have about like, this is what I got out of APHA meeting, and shows like this is a value to me and how I can be a better public health practitioner. Twitter is a good way of just chronologically remembering all the things that happen. And actually, Twitter is a great way as you're doing that every single time. After the annual meeting, you're like overloaded with everything. It's a great way to go back through your Twitter feed and look about all the key things that you remember. And it's like another way of reflection as well. I've seen some people go about it.
Yeah, and as students, I don't think we get enough advice about that. I don't have a Twitter, and I don't update my LinkedIn. So be part of my tribe. Let's all create a Twitter and update our LinkedIns. I know we're running out of time. Some things we didn't touch about housing, for one. Socials, the importance of socials, and then having that talked about following up, but having that notebook as part of following up.
Yeah, I'll keep it pretty short. So housing, if you haven't figured out your housing, you really do need to figure it out. Just kind of keep the thing I'm going to talk about housing, just keep an idea of making sure all your stuff is safe, because usually during annual meetings, just make sure you have your bag, things that are most important, you're carrying them. I usually carry my backpack. Carry a charger with you. I kind of part that. Chargers are really important because there's never enough plugs at APHA annual meeting. And if you have an external battery pack, those are key. But also, hand sanitizer, ton of it. And APHA, I know, will be giving out a lot of free hand sanitizer, and a lot of the booths in the expo will also be giving out hand sanitizer. So keep those in mind if you need to stock back up. But keep in mind how long it takes you to get from where you are staying to the annual meeting. That will determine if you're able to go back home. It will determine how many things you need to bring with you. And also, if you don't know if you need to take an Uber, Lyft, you're taking a scooter, whatever you're walking, just kind of be conscientious of where you're walking, where you're going through. And if you have buddies, have a buddy system. If it's your first time, try to find someone that's also going there. And it helps kind of keep that accountability. Great times to walk with people, especially if they're staying in the same area. So just kind of keep that in mind. Second was about what did you say? Yeah, socials. So socials are a great way to meet everyone in the sections. And socials, there's socials for the sections and the caucuses and SPIGs. Those are great ways to just celebration. For the people that are in person, great way to get free food. For the people that are going to be virtual, great way to just get to know people. Some sections are doing theirs completely virtual. So just kind of keep that in mind on which ones are going to be in person, which ones are going to be virtual only. And some schools will be doing socials. So if you're interested in a specific school or you are an alumni of a school, check with your school to see if they're doing something in person. Usually it comes with free food. If they're doing something virtual, just kind of keep that in mind, and a great way to pave it forward for students that might be looking to be part of that school and want to know the culture of the school. And then there's going to be some big foundations, like the Beaumont Foundation usually does something in person and there's free food there. So just kind of think about your food path, because oftentimes you can forget to eat. So make sure you bring snacks. If you got any energy bars or anything like that, just make sure you bring a couple. You may not need them. And also make sure you bring a bottle of water and something that you can refill, because oftentimes people do get dehydrated at the annual meeting because they do not think about drinking water, eating, because they're just moving everywhere around. So make sure you're keeping yourself filled up. And then to that last point, make sure you do have a notebook. I usually use this my phone, and I kind of like anything I need to follow up on, I just kind of keep notes. And I give myself a couple days after annual meetings, just kind of decompress. And then the following week after that, that Monday, I might start pinging people and be like, hey, we talked at the annual meeting. And this is where having a picture is really great, because if I took a selfie with them, I usually send that picture when I'm reaching out to them. And that picture reminds them of our whole entire conversation. And that's an instant way, because you can get lost in all the many people that they might have met. So.
That's amazing. We're right at time. What a great place to stop. I want to thank you so much, Brian. All of the wisdom you share is absolutely phenomenal. And I'm so excited that our students in the larger section will be able to hear it. And I want to thank you to the people who showed up. Really amazing questions. And I hope that this information is useful. And for those of you who are watching later, please do not hesitate to reach out to anyone in the CHPPD leadership, Brian and myself included, if you have any questions. Again, I will be there, and I'm a student myself, so don't hesitate to reach out and maybe we can connect on APHA. But with that, we'll sign off and I'll stop the recording. Thank you.
Thank you.